Our guest today is Carrie Phillips, and Carrie was widowed at age 32, and she's the founder of Young Widowed and Dating, an online support group that provides a safe, supportive, non-judgmental forum for the widowed community. And she's a blogger for Open to Hope and a previous contributor for HuffPost and Hope for Widows Foundation. And Carrie was like one of the first people that when we started having Zoom calls, we connected and did some tech stuff together. So and here we are again, Carrie. So I'll leave it to you.
Perfect, thank you. So I just want to share my screen. Can you see that okay? Just want to make sure I have this right.
That looks great.
Okay, awesome. So thank you everyone for joining me and coming to the session on Making Meaning. And as someone said, I really wish we did not have to, be here under these, less than perfect situation. I wish we had all come together under better circumstances. So today I'm presenting Making Meaning. And hold on, went a little too fast. So I want to point out that for me, making meaning is not finding meaning in the actual death. For me, when someone says making meaning, it's making meaning in the life that I have left to live. So I don't think there's ever a way that I come to the conclusion like my husband died for this reason. So I don't focus on the death in finding the meaning. I focus on the life that I have here that I'm still living. And I know someone mentioned to me that, oh, I think your husband died so you can have this widow group and provide this forum for, people to meet other young widows. And I just don't buy that because it just seems like there's so many other people doing some really great stuff in the world, and the cost for them doing that and helping other people was not the death of their spouse. So I don't connect the two. So for me, my finding meaning is how to live my life with purpose, despite having a dead husband. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on today, not the why about why your person died, but more on how you can find meaning in your life post loss. So there's a great quote by David Kressler, and he worked with Elizabeth, I believe her name was Elizabeth Ross, and she was the person who developed the 5 stages of grief that I'm sure everybody's familiar with: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and anger. Oh, I'm sorry, and let me see, and acceptance. So David Kressler, it was her colleague, and he proposes that there's a 6th stage of grief, finding meaning. And I thought this was a really great quote that he has, that loss is simply what happens to you in life, and making meaning is what you make happen. And so it really resonates with me because though I don't necessarily believe in the 5 stages of grief, I don't think that they're linear, and I don't think you go from one step to the next stage and then you're kind of done with this previous stage. I think it's kind of all a combination. You go back and forth. I know personally for me, I was angry 1 month, the next time I was in denial, even sometimes still, even 9.5 years out, it's hard for me to believe that, he's still not here, that I can't just pick up the phone and call him. And it just kind of seems like I'm living in this dream that he's gone and I'm still here. So I just don't believe that the steps and the stages of grief are linear. So my story is that my husband was in South America when he died unexpectedly. And I had spent so many months just kind of beating myself up for not being there when he died. I had rescheduled my flight to fly in a little later. And I want to say maybe even for years, I kind of lived with that guilt that I changed my flight last minute. And perhaps if I'd gotten there a little sooner, I would have realized how ill he was. I would have maybe urged the doctor to check something else because they kept saying it wasn't. He went into the rainforest and contracted what we assumed was malaria, but they kept telling him that it wasn't malaria. And perhaps if I was there, I could have fought a little harder to get them to run the necessary tests, and I wasn't. And so a good long while I spent a lot of time beating myself up for that. And I realized that I was spending a lot of time focusing on things that I could not control. I was focused on, I shouldn't have booked the ticket. I shouldn't have changed my flight. I should have forced him not to go into the rainforest. So I spent a lot of time focused on things that I could not control. So these are some of the things that we are just completely out of our control. And as I mentioned, death, time moving forward, we're not responsible for others' actions, the opinions of others. And so I decided that I was going to start focusing on some of the things that I could control. And what are some of the things that we can control? How we show up in the world, the level of gratitude that we express every day, whether we seek help. So those are some of the things that we can control. And being the type A personality that I am, I really struggle with the loss of control. And everybody knows that widowhood is complete chaos. It's completely out of your control. And some of these things on the list just were really, really hard for me. And then about 3 years into my loss, it was my mother-in-law, and I can hear her plain as day. She said to me, she said, "Baby, you have to live. He was my son and I loved him, but you do not honor him by wasting your life." And when she said it to me, it didn't stir me into action immediately. It just kind of, it's like she planted a seed and it just kind of marinated in my brain. And then after a while, I realized like she was absolutely right. I am not giving any honor to his life by just kind of disconnecting from the world. And that's kind of how I felt. I was extremely numb, just kind of going through the motions. And so after she said that to me and it kind of marinated, I decided, like she's absolutely right. I am not doing anybody any justice by just kind of wasting what's left of my life. And so I decided to try to find some gratitude in each day and work on the things that I could control. And I also want to point out that it definitely wasn't an overnight thing. It takes daily practice and reminding yourself, do not go down that rabbit hole of woulda, coulda, shoulda. It doesn't do any good. And I think it kind of hinders your grief. And it's really important for me, it was really important for me to kind of push through, like even on the days that I was really struggling and just found that there's like, I have a dead husband, like what could be great about this day? So it was important for me to keep pushing through. And I remember that I think it was like a New Year's Eve. I said, for the new year, I'm gonna go shopping, I'm gonna get some new makeup, and I'm gonna try to dress a little happier and bring some joy into my life. So I went to the mall, I bought new makeup, I bought new clothes, and I was really excited to get home and try everything on. And so I got dressed up, I did my hair, I put on my makeup. I was feeling good. And then I went to look in the mirror and I was really disappointed because I feel like even though like my exterior looked amazing, my eyes just looked like I had lost my husband. My eyes were just so sad. And I was just about ready to quit. Like, this happy talk and this self motivation just isn't working. And I had started my Young Widowed and Dating group around that time. And I went into the group and I'll never forget, I was venting, I was crying, I was frustrated. I'd spent all this money and here I still look like my husband's dead. And so one of the members said to me, I was telling her, like my eyes just look so sad. It radiates sadness. And she says to me, keep doing what you're doing, and one day your eyes will catch up. And she was absolutely right, because I kept pushing forward, kept going. And, there's amazing research that says even just a little bit of hope, a little bit of kind of looking forward to the next day, finding the joy will help your healing. So that last bullet, that mourners with just a minimal amount of positive emotions and a great deal of negative emotion do better than those with no positive emotions at all. So you don't have to be 100% happy all the time, but I think I always say, like, grieve with hope. Just know that once, if you get through to today, that tomorrow can be better. And so just having that hope can make a huge difference in kind of how you're grieving. And I'm not gonna lie, in addition to the guilt that I felt for not being there with my husband, once I started taking these steps to be a little more hopeful, to be a little more positive, then I got a whole nother set of guilt issues that I was dealing with. And so some of the things I want to point out when you start kind of looking for that meaning and that purpose in your life is that you have to give yourself permission to live. You know, you didn't die, you're still here, and you owe it to yourself to live your life on your terms and what's left of it. I remember there are days that, you know, I cried all day. I went to shower, like the shower was my safe spot where I would kind of go into the shower and cry and kind of let all my emotions out. And I found that the days where I was crying in the shower, the days that I did not get out of bed, I missed my husband. And then on the days where my friends dragged me out of the house and forced me to do something fun, I still missed my husband. So I came to the conclusion that no matter what I did, I was still going to miss him. So why not enjoy my life and make the best of it? Because I was going to miss him either way. So you have to give yourself permission to live. And another thing, guilt that came up with me was that I was holding on to a lot of guilt for not being there. And then I was so angry that my husband had gone into this rainforest and I had asked him not to go. I had begged him not to go because we weren't familiar with South America. His mom warned him, my mom warned him. And so I was holding on to a lot of anger, like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to us? Like, why would you not listen to us? And all of this could have been avoided. I could have had my life that that we were only married for a year and 6 days. And I had had this great life, in my mind of what our marriage would look like. And I felt like he took that from me. And so I just had to let go of that anger. I had to forgive myself for not being there because I always say that if love alone could have saved our spouses, they would still be here with us. And so I had to forgive myself for not being there because, we can't predict the future and hindsight is 2020. I could look back and say, yes, I could have done this, but again, I can't change the past. I can only focus on now. And I also had to forgive him for making the decision to go into the rainforest. And so part of me looking for meaning and finding purpose meant forgiving and releasing that guilt and that anger. And I'm 9.5 years out. And I remember the first time that I laughed after he died. And I felt so bad. I was just like, oh my God, my husband died and here I am laughing about something. I think his sister-in-law said something, my sister-in-law, and I started laughing. And there was just this guilt and this heaviness for like wanting to move forward and wanting to enjoy my life. He's not here and here I am being happy. How dare I be happy? And just kind of removing that guilt for moving forward because you always carry them with you. They're a part of you. They played a huge role in the person that you are today. So it was important for me to remember that my moving forward was not forgetting. I was not leaving him behind. I closed that chapter, yes, but a part of him still lives within me. So I'm always going to have that love for him. So my moving forward did not equate to forgetting. And so that played a key role in me finding my meaning and finding my purpose. And I think this is a great quote. Finding meaning means gaining a sense of control and finding order in the chaos. And for me, I kind of pictured my life as like a jigsaw puzzle. You know, here I had this beautiful picture in front of me. Things were great. By no means was my marriage perfect, but it was perfect for us. So that it was represented this beautiful jigsaw puzzle. And it was almost like someone came and just kind of kicked over my puzzle. And that's kind of what death did. It just kind of knocked everything that was in order, just completely knocked it over and just kind of left me scrambling to pick up the pieces. And so you have all these puzzle pieces and this chaos, and you know what the picture is supposed to look like, but you only have these little pieces all over. And so with time, you slowly start trying to put that puzzle back together. You slowly start trying to put your life back together. And you start out with the familiar pieces. So, you know, I was working on the edges because I know the lines on this means that they're border pieces. So I start working on that. And as I'm putting it back together, there's some pieces that they don't even look familiar to me. I'm wondering, you know, is this even my puzzle? And so I'm working and I'm putting these pieces back together. And as I rebuild this puzzle of my life, I realized that this major part is missing. My husband is missing. But I still had to tell myself that even though this one part of my puzzle is missing, like I'm still capable of creating a happy life. My puzzle, though the piece is missing, it still can be beautiful. I still have to look at it for the bigger picture and realize that, yes, he was a huge integral part of my life, but I still have a life. I can still make it beautiful. I can still find happiness. I can still find joy. And so those are some of the things that I kind of went through with finding my meaning and finding my purpose, just kind of looking at the bigger picture. So as I mentioned, I run a young widowed and dating support group, and I just kind of asked them an informal poll, just kind of, you know, how they're finding meaning in their loss. And the vast majority said that just being a better person is how they went about finding meaning. You know, just kind of being better than they were the day before and striving to be better. And that was the most the number one reason that people chose. And then secondly, a good majority, almost 25% of them said they're still trying to figure it out. And my group tends to be for people who are a little further out in their grief. So I know that, you know, I think I didn't really start working on my purpose or finding the meaning to my life and what was left of it until like year 4. So I want you to give yourself grace and be patient, that even though you're, you know, it's chaotic in the first few years. And I know someone said 19 months seems like it's, you know, it's pretty far out, but it's really not. In the whole scheme of things, like your grief is just kind of, you take it and it gets a little lighter. But at 19 months in, I was still just kind of trying to survive. Honestly, I wasn't even in a place where I was thriving. I was just trying to make it day by day. And so even though my group's further out, like 25% of the people who responded said, you know, I'm still trying to figure out, like, how do I find meaning and what is my purpose now that my spouse is not here? So I point that out just to say, you know, I know you're early in your grief, so be patient and give yourself lots of grace. And so how are some ways that you can find meaning or find purpose? I think the first thing is to kind of rediscover yourself. I know a lot of times we've been married, you know, for decades, we've been with this person for a really long time, and they are a major part of our life. And so just kind of figure out who you are. Who are you if you're not a wife, if you're not a spouse, if you are not a partner, if you are not your children's mother, or, you know, who are you? Are you a father? What do you enjoy doing? What makes you tick? What are some things you would do if you weren't being paid? How would you live your life? And so finding your purpose means just kind of rediscovering who you are. I kind of touched on becoming a better you. Do you want to travel? I know since losing my husband, I have become a lot more empathetic. I was kind of like, no nonsense, don't talk to me about your nonsense. But now I realize, like, everybody has a story, everybody has something to share. And so I'm more attentive, I'm more willing to give people my time and listen. I travel more. So, you know, what are some things that make you a better person? do you have a bucket list that you want to work on? And helping others. That's also a great way to find purpose and meaning. I've met widows over the years that they're working on changing laws to prevent another family from having to deal with, the loss that they experienced. It's establishing a foundation, such as a scholarship fund for a spouse who was an educator. So I find that in helping others, that's a good way to find purpose and to find meaning, especially in a way that honors your late spouse, if that's something you want to do. A memorial fund, scholarship, those are kind of ways that you can help others and find some meaning. And so it just kind of wanted to recap some of the takeaways. I think it's really important that you play a role in your grief. You have to be deliberate, and you have to really make an effort. It's not something, I guess it does come easy to some people, but I know there were times where I just kind of wanted to give up and say, like, look, I've lost a spouse. I get to kind of check out of life. So it's deliberate and it's being intentional. It's very important. You have to push through that survivor's guilt. You're going to feel guilty for everything. Like, oh, 20 years ago, he told me this, and maybe if I had made this decision, it could have altered the outcome. You have to forgive yourself. You have to know that you are here for a reason. You are here for a purpose, and just kind of keep pushing forward on the days where you're struggling, like, why is he or she not here and I'm still here? Forgive your spouse if that's something you need to work on, like as I did. And remember that making meaning or finding purpose takes nothing away from your love for a spouse. That was a huge thing for me, especially kind of when I started dating about 4 years out. I really had a hard time with that because I felt like, okay, here I am moving forward. What does that mean for, my marriage? What does that say for my spouse? And I just had to remember that I think it's Kelly Lynn that says, like, love grows love. And so your heart just kind of expands and your life expands. And so you aren't leaving or forgetting your spouse. You are living your life and you're carrying that love with you. Understand that making meaning is to find order in the chaos and not really figuring out the why. I know sometimes when I mentioned that I was doing a presentation on making meaning, the first thing that people think is like, how can you find meaning in his death? And for me, it's not about the death. It's about making meaning in my life and the life that I have left, and how do I want to be in the world. And so I think if you get away from that it means the death, it helps you see the bigger picture. And knowing that making meaning can be as simple as being a better version of yourself than the day before. And you're going to have ups and downs. And just remember that it doesn't have to be a giant leap. It can be a baby step. It's something that you work towards. It was not something that happened overnight for me. As I mentioned, it took me 4 years to even get to a place where I even wanted to say that I was widowed. I was just kind of stuck in that place. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want you to talk about it. And one day I just decided, you know what, I think I'm ready to face the fact that I'm widowed. And I wrote a piece for the Huffington Post. And I remember when I shared it, and some of my Facebook acquaintances were saying, like, oh, I didn't even know you were widowed. So it's not something, if you're 6 months out and you're like, oh, I haven't been able to find meaning. Again, give yourself grace. It's not something that happens overnight. It can happen in year 10. Everybody is different. So go at your own pace, and just remember that, again, moving forward and finding meaning and purpose does not mean that you don't love your spouse. It doesn't mean that you're taking anything away from your marriage or your relationship. And so I just wanted to point out or mention that these are my books, if anybody is interested. And I will turn it over to Whitney to handle the questions and answers. And thank you so much. I appreciate it for Soaring Spirits. And thank you guys for attending and allowing me to share my thoughts and views with you. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much, Carrie. Thanks for sharing your perspective on making meaning, and then also being just so open for our community and encouraging and supportive of all the many different kinds of widowed people we have here.